Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Dave.
And we're the hosts of the Chasing Tomorrow podcast, where we bring you stories that delve into the science and spirit behind intriguing people doing extraordinary things.
Welcome to the Chasing Tomorrow podcast. This week, it's episode 29. And Happy New Year, everyone. This is our New Year special. And alongside of me today, he's not alongside of me, he's across from me today, is my co-host, Joe Gagnon. And Joe is typically alongside of me interviewing what this past year was 28 lively, wonderful, inspiring guests. Today, he's across from me, and I'm going to be interviewing him because December 19th, 2019, Joe started, like he does every other day. He got up on his treadmill and he ran a minimum of 10 miles and he did 100 pull-ups and he did 100 push-ups. And he did that every day for the last 365 days. No, sorry, that's not true, because on the 366th day, he did the very same thing over again. He went up and did a minimum of 10 miles running, and he did his push-ups and his pull-ups. Over the year, he's ended up completing over 4,500 miles of running. That's a massive, massive year. But when you end up piling in every day a minimum of 10 miles running, that really, really, really adds up. Joe is a 6-time Ironman finisher. He's finished 6 marathons in 6 continents in 6 days, countless ultra marathons and ultra endurance rides. Welcome to the Chasing Tomorrow podcast, Joe.
Hey, Dave, fun to be here with you in this way. It's always fun to listen to our accomplishments, because as we go through them, I think, they just seem like they're us, not
That's right.
Something remarkable, but listening, I'm like, oh, wow, I guess that did add up to something, huh?
Those are a lot of numbers, aren't they?
Yeah.
So looking back at the year that was, 4,500 miles run. Is this your biggest year to date?
I think it does. I think it eclipses the year that I did the 6-continent challenge. I think I hit like 4,300 miles that year, but without anything really big, like a 200 or 300 mile week. It was a lot of consistency. It started with the 10 miles a day. Then, just as would be typical of any of us, we went to 11. And I think I ended up averaging a little bit over 12 miles a day. Usually it was 10 to 11 on Monday to Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, I would try and combine for at least 30 miles on the weekend. So I was getting in somewhere between 80 and 90 miles a week. And treadmill isn't as hard on you as running on the road. And so I didn't feel that, kind of soreness from it. There's lots of things we can talk about that happened during 365 days, but it was 4,500 sounds like a lot now. And to think that you would actually get out, like, I think people could do 100 miles a week, but they often don't do 7 days. They'll do a long, like 25-mile run or something. So it was a heck of a year, and it was a heck of a year on many levels, right?
Well, yeah, and so we're going to get into the nitty gritty, the dirty of getting up every day, many days that you don't want to, and I've talked to you offline about this, and I can't wait to hear the stories again and to show this to our audience. But the reason why I wanted to talk to you, Joe, today about all of this is your consistency and your stick-to-itiveness and your commitment to really your general overall health, having a goal, seeing to it. It's New Year's Day. We have countless people listening to this podcast who are going to be setting goals for themselves. It's a new year, it's a new you, everything turns over, especially given everything that's happened with 2020. It wasn't a great year for many, and so they're thinking, okay, this is where we're going to start. We're going to start eating healthy. We're going to start exercising. We're going to do all those things that we say that we always are going to do on January 1st. So let's just jump right into that. So you've had a very, very successful 365 days, a great year where you stuck to it. How is it that you're able to stick to it and the vast majority of us struggle with that?
It's a question that I think gets answered over time. I think it's a building thing. I don't think there's any of us who would go from couch to 365 days of anything. Like literally walking around the block would probably be a challenge because we haven't built our own practices into what it is we're committing to. So there's an integrity in how we think that allows for us to do more, as big as we want it to be. But it's like a bit of a 20-year journey. It's been when I found myself, as I've wrote in my book, that I found myself in the greatest rut of my life, a white collar success, family and all of the trappings that you could have. And I'm like, it felt quite empty. And so I didn't like that feeling because I was sort of measuring myself to what everyone else sort of thought mattered. Your title, your bank account, your physical belongings. And I was like, materiality wasn't all I needed. I needed spirit. I needed purpose. I needed to find, who Joe was. And I wasn't satisfied with just that level. So I set out then to sort of challenge myself to a little bit, go run 3 miles, do a few pushups, maybe go to the gym once a week. Like I think in the beginning, I committed to 3 days a week to exercise. And then the next year, I'm like, I wonder if I could do 4 days a week. And then the next year, I was like, I wonder if I could do some days where I do 2 workouts in a day. And so my patience and ability to work through incrementality is high. I'm like, okay, I'll give myself 5 years to train for an Ironman. Some people could do it in a year, but the time horizon allowed for success and not failure because I wasn't trying to rush to something. And we have a lot of time in life. I know it sometimes feels like it goes by quickly, but it was that journey, but there was a core element of the journey that made it work, which was this reconciliation of me with me. That when I let myself down, there ain't no one else I'm letting down. If I make a commitment and don't deliver, there's no one I can blame. If I make a plan and don't get it done, it's up to me. And I never will like the feeling that I'm not delivering on what I'm capable of. And so I just kept always accountable to myself. And if we want to feel good about ourselves, then that's a core of how that happens.
Well, I think you said a couple things there. Number one, integrity. And number two, what I found was really, really beautiful about what you said, Joe, was that it really has to matter. And what you thought once, what mattered, it didn't matter. And then now, obviously, this does matter to you because you're up doing it every day and you don't miss a day. And so what outside of your integrity and you have to answer to yourself at the end of the day, what is it about, these miniature achievable goals every day that really truly matter? Like what gets right under your skin?
Yeah, I think that, if we were to sort of like step back for a second and think about, what makes us human, is this sort of insatiable need for growth and development. It's why society has developed over the past 10,000 years from, pounding on a rock. But, a lot of the creatures we share the planet with don't. We're unique in this way. And so it is inside us, this, spirit that needs to sort of birth itself and explode. And so it's tapping into that. And it's actually being true to the capability we have to improve ourselves. When we improve ourselves, we become a better role model. As a role model, we can have others do the same. We create a better world for all of us to live in. And so I feel that, we need role models who show us. I've had them in my life, people who set out to do great and amazing actions and things. And I'd find like, oh, wow, wouldn't I like to be like that? And then we go and do it. And then just good comes from it. To define our purpose really for all of us really is to help others who we share this world with to be better versions of themselves in whatever way we can, supporting them, setting out a role model for them, inspiring them, challenging them. The same goes back and forth all around. So imagine if we all took that sort of attitude, right? No victims here, Dave, right? No one's,
No.
cannot be blaming. Like we can do, like you literally could just walk around the block. There is no permission required. We're not living in, Syria where it's dangerous to do that. And whatever it is we choose, we just go do it. And then what we find is this a massive return of investment back into ourselves, and then how we feel, and then what we're willing to go do. It's infectious and it's addicting.
Well, yeah, Joe, it's abundantly clear that, at a time like New Year's, where everybody's going out and making promises and plans and goal setting and on and so forth, but time and time again, people start and then there's pretty quick fail shortly thereafter. Why is it that you've been able to kind of transition that want and desire, almost always in your life into a success story? And I see over and over again people are having little false starts here and there. Is it something that's within that you transition a want and a desire into an action, or what are a couple of your nuggets that you've used in your past in order to transition the wants into the do's?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, Dave, you and I have talked about it with some of our guests, and I know you feel this as well. We have to sort of redefine the sort of comfortable and uncomfortable part of life. Being uncomfortable, like I play this analogy with people. If you go play football, you get tackled, whether it's in soccer football or football or whatever, right? Like that's part of the game. And you might oh, I don't like that feeling. That's just part of the game, right? So in life, we get tackled. It might be that I'm a little tired this morning. My leg hurts. I got a headache. I don't feel like doing it. That's being tackled. It is literally part of it. And the ones who win in football, they pick themselves right back up from being tackled and they go back out there and they play harder on the next play. That's where the winners are made. We need to take this context. When I set out on the 6-continent challenge, I wrote myself a note on the first day and I said, the lows will be the highs. I want to go find out what that feels like. And you're sort of dragging and you don't feel it. And it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity in Singapore, or, you're just a little bit off from that first step when you get to Johannesburg. But since I was expecting that, I was like, oh, okay, bring it on. It's okay. This is what I went to find, not the glory and the joy. That's going to come and that'll be there forever. But that touching another part of the experience of life with an interest that turns the sort of quote unquote negative into a positive, because it's like, I don't want to deny life. Look, there are going to be sad moments. There are going to be tough moments, but it never makes for a bad day.
No.
Make it a bad moment, make it a sad moment, but the day you got to love no matter what day it is. And when you have that attitude, it's sometimes hard because there's stuff that happens, but okay, let that be the anomaly, not the norm. When you do, you realize that the currency of your life is inside of you. It's not in the bank account. It's not in someone else's head. It's in you. And you trade on that every day. And so if you want more, then just be more. It's like time is to your benefit with that attitude. It really works.
Well, that's what, and I just what you ended up finishing saying there, that's exactly my mindset as well too, if you don't mind me going
Yeah,
there,
please. No,
is
this is
that,
great.
you know, everything you've ever wanted to be, all the goals, they're not out there, they're in you. And I
Mhm.
found that, I was talking a few years ago with a really good friend of mine, a great runner, a runner from Germany. And he was going on about how, these goals and these achievements, they're not outside of you. You're not going out to reach them. They're already there. You
Yeah.
just have to go and dig enough. And so when you said your lows will be your highs, your lows are a lot of the time an undiscovered place within you that it scares you and it hurts and it makes you tremble and it makes you cower and it makes you give up. Um, how many runs, how many workouts do I give up on? Yeah, I give up on quite a few, mostly because yeah, I'm scared. and, but every time that you go through one of those and you end up learning a little bit more, you can end up doing some pretty fantastic things.
Yeah.
So there's a way of looking at the world where, Joe, if you and I disagreed politically, I could come at you and I could say you're part of the problem,
Right.
you as a Democrat or a Republican. And you could do the very same thing to me, but that really doesn't seem to be solving any solutions, does it? But if I
No.
came to myself and said, okay, what's within me that I can ultimately control me? What am I doing that's not making this world a better place? And if we all focused inwardly and worked on ourselves, it just seems like almost all the problems in the world would be solved. And that's also sticking to goals and meeting up with grand things that we put ourselves out to. You are already it. You just have to go and unlock that.
Yeah, yeah. Get rid of those demons. The other thought that I've had for very many, many, many years is on these streaks, especially brings it to light, which is okay. So you run 365 days in a row, you do 10 miles a day, and now 366. Imagine if you just sat down that day and didn't do anything. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
where did all of that power go that I was using every day? Like, it's still in me, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
there. It's
Mm-hmm.
latent, meaning
Mm-hmm.
it's waiting to be used.
It's potential. Yeah.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
to remember that's in us every day.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my streaks come from this idea that, well, it's like the engine in the car that sits there and does nothing. It's sort of
Mm-hmm.
this massive potential that we could put to use, and we have it inside us. So it's like when you're really curious and you want to go out and explore something, there's this sort of energy that comes from that. But when you go through some of these processes, you find that same kind of energy that comes out of the process,
Mm-hmm.
even amongst some of the tough days. When you're done, the satisfaction level is high. You know, I know you're an early morning runner as well. Like, you get a win. You start the day with a win. Like, after
Mm-hmm.
that, all right, so some stuff happens, but you got your win. Like, start the
Mm-hmm.
day with a win, whatever it is. To our listeners, Dave and I, like, we found running is to be a big part of our win, but it's other activities. I mean, it could be reading a book, it could be yoga, it could be meditation. It,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever it is, start the day with a win.
Mm-hmm.
Know that discipline creates freedom, because once you're disciplined, you get to choose. It's when you're not disciplined that you're manipulated into maybe not
Mm-hmm.
doing what you want. Now, there's some people I know who are listening who have a lot of excuses, and I'm sorry for that. Uh, find a way around them. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
have kids. Well, you know what I did when I was at my young kids? I just started getting up earlier. I'm like, I could give up an hour of sleep and just because no one wants to talk to me at 6 in the morning. There's
No
no
one
chores that
does.
have to
Nope.
be done, right?
Yeah.
So use the time. It's yours. You got 24 hours in a day. You got 168 hours in the week. Like you can't come up with 10 hours that are yours. Come on, that's disingenuous.
Yeah, put down the remote. So many of us watch way too much TV. And and I'm not saying that, hey, drop your remote altogether. I mean, if that's something that you really value in your life, or watching sports or movies or whatever it is, yeah, but take a couple of those hours away and do something else that's constructive.
Yeah, I think that the dopamine hit from accomplishing an objective and a goal, you can't replicate that watching TV.
No,
You can be entertained, but you
Mhm.
can't generate that growth path that's inside of you. You can't tap that potential because it
No, and
needs to
I've
be
always,
disrupted to be able to do that.
no, right. Like I always, ask people, like, Joe, you're sitting on a chair right now. Is
Mm.
it comfortable? And
Yeah.
you say, oh yeah, it's comfortable. Yeah, and sitting and we're always going to lean towards comfort. Us as humans, that's what we're evolved to do. But Joe, go and run 10 miles and then go sit in that chair. And then you tell me how comfortable that chair is. And it's it's a lot more comfortable
Yeah.
because you've kind of deserved that break, that rest. And there's something that when it comes to the athletic world, if you're not building, you're recovering to then build. And so the chair that you're sitting in, if you've had a good enough workout today, it's in fact quite valuable to be able to take that break. But yeah, I think that far too many of us are resting far longer than really what we really do need. But Joe, so let's walk through that 365 days, because at the beginning of any one goal, I like you, I'm eager, I'm excited to embark on all of this. I get excited. I write up my treatment program. I get my new shoes. I do all those things. There's got to be a point where, if it's 2 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 6 weeks in, 3 days in, who knows, that you go, you know what? Yeah, I'm just not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first or second or third day that you feel, oh yeah, I'm not feeling it, but I've done it for 14 days in a row. I can take a break. I can take a day off. I'm sure you had those feelings and thoughts. What do you tell yourself? Where do you go in your head that say, no, this isn't okay? I need to be back on that treadmill. I need to do some more push-ups.
I think that, first I started off, which I knew what I was going to do to myself, was just set a 100-day goal, not the 365. I knew what I wanted to accomplish, but I sort of, vocally said 100. Then I get to 100, I could go to 200, then I could go to 300. So there was some incrementality built into it, which makes it a little easier to contemplate. So that part was good as a starting point. Second, I knew what was going to sort of happen would be my mind would get tired before my body would. The body is really good at adapting to stress, and it builds, And so in the beginning, I was running good and felt good. And then you'd have those moments where your neurotransmitters are like, oh, you should just sit down, or you should take a nap or something. And, but I'd say the first 100 days are pretty exciting. Excuse me. And, and then of course we had the COVID outbreak. So there was something to be said for, hey, I was in a protected space. I'm running on a treadmill. I have a reasonably nice basement. Well, it's not nice. It's concrete floors, but it's a 9-foot ceiling, and it's a nice place to be. I'd say the toughest part got somewhere around the 250-day mark, and it lasted for a while. I would say 20 days or so of every day. It was drudgery. I was just like, the first half, I would say, so typically I was taking an hour and a half to do the run. So, it was a modest pace, wasn't fast. It could sometimes go slower, wasn't about the speed of it. It would take me at least an hour to feel like I wasn't dragging, and sometimes an hour and 15. And like the last 15 minutes felt good, or sort of. And it was though, that sort of belief of like, all right, well, stopping isn't going to help. That's not going to solve the problem, because then you're going to feel unsatisfied. And so just stick it out. I didn't realize that that mental strain would last for that long. It felt like a while. Then it finally cleared. But what kept me going, interestingly enough, was once I made through one of those days, the next day I kept going back to the prior day and saying, well, I made it through yesterday, so I can probably make it through today. And the same thing the next day. I made it through yesterday. Just stick with it. Just stick with it, you know? And then and now really the past, I'd say 100 have been a bit of a pleasure. You know, it's now the body is used to it. The mind's used to it. The pattern's there, you know. My alarm goes off 5:10. I'm out of bed, trying to run by 5:25, you know, finish by whatever that gets me to, like almost 7 o'clock, a couple minutes before 7. Then I do the pull-ups and then the push-ups. Pull-ups are hard. They're always hard. 100, you know, just for everyone to get done in sets of 10. Yeah, I've been doing pull-ups a long time. I think it's like, so it's 36,000 pull-ups in a year. Push-ups are way easier, but I've always sort of mastered it, both of them, but they still are effort, you know. I do think that the combination would be visible, you know, in terms of, you know, body tone and overall strength. So it feels good as a result. And then the other cool thing is when you do finally get to sleep, you sleep very well. You know, you have used it up, and that sleep works, and then you get back out there again.
Yeah. So Joe, anybody who goes through, you know, a multi-week, multi-month challenge, just the very same thing as a New Year's resolution or setting new goals in the new year, you're going to get to a spot, and then, you know, the rat brain gets moving, and you start asking yourselves lots of questions, and there's a lot of mental chatter that takes place. And the vast majority of us, 90 some odd percent, we listen to that chatter. We have, okay, well, this is good enough. And, oh, you know, I am spending more time doing this than I really should, because I should be, you know, going and hanging out with the kids more. We can end up making some pretty good and reasonable arguments, talking us down from doing what we're doing. So you end up having that day after day for quite a few days, and quite a lengthy, you know, time period in. It really wasn't even at the beginning, which is typically I always find for me, it almost always is.
Yeah.
But so those little mental chatters in your head, were you having a conversation with yourself in the moment? Were you kind of trying to push them aside and saying, okay, I'm going to ignore you? Or do you end up taking that mental chatter and you have a conversation with yourself in that moment with your negative thoughts?
So the first place is that, you know, I've embraced this idea, which is that, you know, pain is temporary, quitting is forever. And I just don't like the idea of being a quitter. So that's first and foremost. So I don't want to define myself. I don't even, you know.
So that's a core value.
Yeah. I love everyone on this podcast, but I have to love myself more than anyone else does. And that's the starting point. Is the second is, you know, and this might be a little bit of tough love kind of thing, but are you proud of yourself when you give up for no reason? Like, really? That's it? They're just not good excuses, Dave. I mean, they're just not. It's like, oh, it hurts a little bit. Oh, I'm a little bit tired. Oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Fine. If that's what you want to say, then go about it differently. Then redefine it. That is not a good reason not to do it. And so then you get this incredible return by forcing your way through that. And then the third phase of it is some compartmentalization, which is, you know, you're ultra endurance guy. Any of us have, whatever you want to call it, a zombie brain, where we sort of turn off all senses in a sense for a while, right? And then either you look at the gravel in the road, or you just look at the floor ahead of you, and we're our brain is capable of just sort of turning off for a while. And so that's the third part of it. And so it's training. It's like a meditation. And then time will go by because you turned off that big sensory thing going on, trying to stop you from doing something. Listen, the real problem is that we're acting off of primitive behaviors. We're no longer living as cavemen. Most of the reason the brain turns us off is because we think there's no food nearby. We were saving our energy so we could go on a hunt 3 days from now. That's all gone. We stopped going when we got to 10% of our capability. But we're getting a bad feedback system. So you got to work on retraining that feedback system to say, there's really nothing bad going on here. I'm going to keep going. And now you know how that really is true. When you're done, you feel fine.
Absolutely. And you didn't die.
Right.
And you're still here. And, you know, that one run that you completely give it all and then you fall over of a heart attack. Okay. Yeah. You know what? But that almost never happens. No. Ever. And so, like, you know, to kind of answer my own question too, it's, you know, Joe, you know, there's always these little mental tactics that you uncover.
Yeah.
You're always, and the one mental tactic that works today is not going to work tomorrow.
Right.
And sometimes there's a compartmentalization. Other times there's a drifting and a flow state in the Zen. And other times for me personally, I sit with a lot of negative thoughts. You know, ask it, what is it doing there? And what is it trying to do? Is it serving? You know, I know just a couple of weeks ago, I was, you know, interviewed for another podcast and we were talking about just that, you know, and how, you know, sometimes, you know, my brain doesn't work all that well when I'm, you know, deep into a 100-mile, 200-mile race. But what does work is storybooks. And, you know, I've got 3 kids. I've been reading them storybooks all my life. And so when I'm deep into a run, like when I'm running across Canada this next year, you know, there's this really loud voice in my head. And I'm just gonna tell you, Joe, this is a bit of a lengthy story, so sit back. So there's always this really loud voice in my head, but it's really quite embarrassing because he's small. And he, you know, it's this little salamander that's stuck to my brain that I created in my own head. And his name's Emilio. He's one of my 4 animals that only has, you know, has a name. The other guys don't have names.
Okay.
And so Emilio is loud, and he's only loud because of his proximity, right? He's got this little voice, and he's constantly licking my brain. But he's telling me that I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, that, hey, this is enough. You should stop and take a break, and your legs hurt, and, you know, you really, you deserve a break. But, you know, he's pathetic is really what he is. And I really pay a lot of attention to him because he's the loudest and he's never, ever shuts up. So instead of focusing my attention on him, which I think most people, they're told all these things and they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, why would I tell myself a lie? Why would I, you know, not tell myself the truth? And we don't tell ourselves the truth all the time.
Right.
So sometimes it's not listening to him, but paying attention to what's up there. And there's always an eagle flying over top of me. And the eagle's stoic, and the eagle stares off into the distance and sees something that's really, truly worth getting. And it's his vantage point. He can see things that you can't see from the ground. And he's stoic, and he stays the course. He says, don't panic, relax. And believe me, what's up there is worth this, you know, stupid, you know, salamander screaming things in your ear. There's always a coyote, and the coyote is always running beside me. When I stop paying attention to the coyote bites, and he draws blood. And I always try to, you know, like when I was running across Canada in 2018, he would always be in the ditches. I would always look, and you see trees rustling. He's always there, and you're always there. And the thing is, he never pays attention to you. Whenever he bites you, if you start kicking at him and screaming and yelling, he doesn't go away. But he never makes eye contact with you. And but what he does, he looks up into the sky often. And see, he looks past the eagle and way up to the big black dragon that's circling over top. And you always forget the big black dragon is there, because he ends up he goes over top of the sun, and you like when a plane flies over and it shadows you out for a quick second.
Yeah.
And this dragon is up there, and I know that I'm not afraid of him, because but the coyote sure is. And so the further you run, the lower that dragon gets, and he's swirling over top of you, and you come to realize that you are the dragon. And so in my mind, this whole long story, is this whole thing plays out because then I can end up making more sense about my thoughts and feelings, and because we know what the coyote is, and that's your relationship with pain. The salamander it's your pathetic self, and we're all very pathetic, but do you listen to your pathetic self or not? Your ego, but then your dragon is really your power and your dominance. There are very few dragons in the world. When they walk into a room, everyone knows that they're there, and they're never afraid because they're a dragon. If you're a dragon, you're never going to lose. You're going to be so confident within every situation you bring in. And when you're a dragon, you never, ever listen to a salamander. So these conversations that get played over in your head, you can end up doing things like this when you're thinking, hey, you know what? I just don't want to do this today. It's too cold outside. These 100 pull-ups, it is really good enough. Dragons never, ever say it's good enough. And that salamander gets the better of you. Yeah. And so you can end up playing these, I think, these very real, stories over and over in your head, and you go, okay, I see what I'm doing here, and I don't like it, and I think I can be better.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does play on this idea of our fundamental insecurity that we live with. There's two parts of insecurity. There's the impermanence of life. That's an insecurity we live with every day. And then there's the I'm not loved insecurity. And both of those can have somewhat debilitating impact on us. The other one is this incredible desire to sort of, have other people like us or something, and that weakness that comes from needing others to validate. When we can compartmentalize those, which is what you're doing, and put them characters and you can act on them, you're now addressing some of the issues that create some of the excuses that we have. And when we can get beyond that and realize that, in fact, the only, you start off with the priority in life is you're number one, right? Your family is number two, and your work is number three, and everything else comes out number four. You need those priorities to remember how that if you don't serve your own personal interests, you're not good at anything else. You cannot use everyone else to validate those. This is why we go through this process, David, so that we can create the power. We have, whatever you want to call it, we're made of gold or some energy force. But if it's not refined, if it's not used, if it's not, sort of perpetuated into something better, then you never achieve that. And that's for us. And then the validation doesn't have to come because the value you're creating on your own. And in funny ways, it gets sort of echoed by the people who want to be around you.
Right.
The bullies go away. They can't penetrate you. The negativity goes away because it doesn't sit. Only the people who want to be with you are the ones who want to go on the same journey, who want to sort of find the same magic that you found or I found. And then that's like the best part of that story would be then that group creates an echo effect in the next group, who creates an echo effect in the next group. And before you know it, we've sort of wiped out the insecurity at a reasonable level, and the doubt about ourselves and belief in who we are. And yeah, it's like, say that the best lives are ones where the days feel long and the years feel short, because we're sort of making it work all the time. And it's hard to believe, there's that trite saying, which the best is yet to come. I don't know if that's really the case as much as, we're not ending yet, but, the chasing tomorrow idea is like, chase tomorrow with me. Like, let's find out what's possible. I don't know. Look, it doesn't matter whether I'm going to be, and we keep picking running because running's a good analogy for life, but it's like, I don't have to be as fast as Dave. That's not the point. It's like, it has nothing to do with anything. It's like, am I my best version of me?
Yeah, looking inward again, right?
Yeah, and is Dave the best version of him? Now, can we go run against the other? Sure. But, competitors, as the saying goes, is not an enemy, It's in the game of life, not in life.
Well, yeah, and ultimately in that race, if you and I are running together and I'm 20 feet up ahead and you're racing me, you're not racing me, you're racing yourself. You're just using me as a pawn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm doing the very same thing.
And it's at work too. It's with our family. It's all of that. It's this introspection. It says, but I have personally taken all of this to be the validation of the theory that what we do makes a difference. That how we think about ourselves makes a difference. That the currency of your life is in your head. Maybe in a dictionary. I like to tell people it's in the dictionary. It's like words like passion and perseverance and grit and determination and commitment, optimism. They're all in the dictionary. They're free. Go grab them, use them, like make them part of your life, And then in those moments when it's not like that, just say, yeah, I know what's going on. Acknowledge. Work through it, give yourself a little bit of time, and then just get right back at it. Because, man, you get one run on this thing. Why would you just sort of like not optimize? And, Dave, the other thing, you and I don't go back a lot. Maybe one of these episodes we can go back and sort of a bit of how we started, but neither of us started with much.
No.
Lower to middle income families, just, maybe what we had was loving parents, or that's about the currency we had, and we decided we were going to go do it the way we wanted to do it, in spite of what else might have been out there. Privilege doesn't beget opportunity.
No, and ultimately just doing really what matters to us.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible accountant. That's why I don't do my own accounting. But something that I don't really care to be better at.
Yeah.
But the things that I want to be better at in this world, I can very well control my own effort, and I can work harder, and I will work harder, and I have worked harder in the past. And so leading into New Year's with all these goals, hopes, dreams, make it fun for you. Do something that rewards you, and it might not be the general reward that everybody else receives this, and therefore this is what I should have as well too. But make something special just for you. And so Joe, leading into 2021, you're every day you're getting up and running minimum of 10 miles, 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups again. We've talked about this offline, that you might be transitioning out from that, because what once brought you joy might other things might bring you different amounts of joy, or something a little bit different. You want to talk about what's going on in 2021 for you?
Yeah, that's good. I think so I think I like all of us, like, so in this world of what we do, we like round numbers. You're going to go run 9 miles, you better not stop at 8.75, run around the parking lot for the last quarter mile. It just, I don't know, it's more satisfying. So I think I've decided 400 is it. The 365 was, I wanted it to be a year, and then I couldn't quit on 366. It just felt like I was in good flow, but now I'm mentally ready for 400 to be something new. So that's sometimes middle of January, given what's going on in the middle of winter, is not much else for me to do. So I'll be happy with the 400. I'll put that in the books, and that'll be one of those that, I'll always have to look back on as an accomplishment. And now, I realized that, without traveling a lot and without doing the races this year, that I really love the the exploration that comes from the new settings, the different environments. And so I'm working on a race plan for next year that'll sort of force me to do a few different things, like an adventure race, if it's safe to do, at the end of February, is a 300-mile true expedition style race from one side of Florida to the other. Biking, canoeing, trekking, running, probably take 3 days, and it'll be, through swamps and all that. So it'll be good. I did a lot of adventure racing about 20 years ago, and so it'd be fun to get back to that. But it'll force me to get back on the bike, which I've been starting a little bit, and I have to find my biking legs again, like I used to have. I'm pretty close to committing to a 250-miler in Arizona that our VIPA is putting on.
Great.
That'll
What's
go
that called again?
It's called the Cocodono 250, and it's first year of it. It'll go sort of from Phoenix up to Flagstaff through some of the most beautiful terrain in the world. And, I did the 200 with Tahoe, and I had a big problem with my ankle the last 25, sorry. And so I'm hoping to see where that goes. And then later in the year, I'm looking for a last person standing race. I want to test that part of the mentality. And then a couple other just like, adventure challenges. So it'll be a lot more full than maybe a regular year, because I'm going to sort of want to do more than I didn't get stuff done this year. So it'll be to evolve out of, and it'll be much more specific, like we talked before, like interval running, and do some tempo running, and do, like on the bike, I used to have specific workouts of strain drills and one-legged drills and, high watts for a little while, and then do climbing and really build up that engine again. It's there, just needs to be tapped into, and just have some fun, be outside as much this year. It feels like, each year as we age, we sort of get this thing in our head that is sort of like, well, I can't do more. And I'm still going to do more. And then the other big exciting thing for me would be to do whatever support, and we'll talk more about this over the next 4 months, is supporting you on the Trans-Canadian run. And whether that's spending some time with you on the road, recording the podcast from there. The other part, Dave, sincerely for me, is to help people achieve their objectives. Someone wants to, I don't know, I'm sure you would love to do this too. Someone says, hey, Dave, I'd love to break 4 hours in a marathon. Will you run with me? It'd be the funnest thing to do, or give me a plan and support me, whatever, make it a year to do that. So for me, with you, I just want to bring every bit of positive spirit to get you across Canada and break the record.
Thanks, Joe. Absolutely. And yeah, we will definitely take that offline. And I think that's, variety is a spice of life, isn't it?
Yep.
Every year there's new goals, there's new ideas, there's new thoughts. It's not that we're not setting goals, we're just shifting. And they might be harder or different or more intellectual or more physical. But whatever it is, until the day we die, we're growing. There's a plaque on my wall in upstairs, and it says "Encaro Imparo." And Michelangelo said on his 89th birthday, and it says, "I am still learning."
Yeah.
Michelangelo is still learning. Joe, you and I, we've got a long ways to go.
Yeah. And I think that, to our listeners who have been with us on this journey. So when Dave and I started, I think we were inspired by the idea of a podcast, because for us, it's about meeting these amazing guests that we've had on. We're committing to what I guess we'll call our second year, even though we didn't have a full first year, of putting out a weekly podcast, and to finding really interesting people and finding out about them. That's another part of what 2021 is going to be about for us, I know for sure. So if you're a listener, we appreciate you. and we will deliver for you. And, you can always reach out to us, info@chasingtomorrowpodcast.com, or you can find us on any of our social media sites. And our Instagram feed, our Chasing Tomorrow Instagram feed, you're going to start to see some more of just even the highlights from some of our episodes and some other content. So we're going to invest this year in building the podcast out. That's sort of our New Year's resolution, is to bring amazing stories, the science and spirit of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, which means they're actually extraordinary people. And you're stuck with the two of us for a while.
Yeah, if there's any one thing that we do really well, Joe, it's endurance. And so,
Yes,
we're going to be doing 2 and 3 and 400th episodes. I'm sure of it. And to all you listeners, let us know, on jasonfarmpodcast.com. Let us know what we're doing right, what you want to see on the podcast. Any interesting guests that we haven't seen pop up, throw them our way. We would love to have them on, expand all of our horizons. But Joe. So New Year's podcast. Let's sign it off. Thanks a lot for joining me today. And next week, let's be at the same desk and interviewing somebody else.
Dave, it's a pleasure. I wish you and the family the best. Happy New Year. Yeah, and DM us on Instagram as well. That's another way to get us. And thanks to everyone for listening. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you. And Dave, thanks very much.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.